عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت إن فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني يجد في بدني زعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله يا أبتاه من الزعف قال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء يماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه بإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي قال يا أماه إني يشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء قال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء صل على محمد وآل محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا عرة عيني والثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا والسلام عليك يا من اختارها الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء ما صل على محمد وآل محمد فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب قال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين قال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء قال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي وبضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، أذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت السماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء خمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. قال الأمين جبرائيل: يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ قال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. ما صل على محمد وآل محمد. قال جبرائيل: يا رب يتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا. قال الله: نعم، قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه لم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من فضل عند الله. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر حبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، إلا نزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي: إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله الثانية: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر حبرنا هذا في المحفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيتنا ومحبينا، وفيهم محموم الله ففرج الله هما، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجة. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عجل فرجه.
برحمد والے محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. دین احمد کے پاسبان سجاد، دین احمد کے پاسبان سجاد، مقصد شہ کے رازداں سجاد، مقصد شہ کے رازداں سجاد، تیرے نقشے قدم کو حسرت سے تکتا رہتا ہے آسمان سجاد، تکتا رہتا ہے آسمان سجاد، جتنی مدح حسین کرتا ہوں، جتنی مدح حسین کرتا ہوں، اتنا ہوتے ہیں مہربان سجاد، اتنا ہوتے ہیں مہربان سجاد، ڈوب جاتا سفینہ اسلام، ڈوب جاتا سفینہ اسلام، گر نہ بادباں سجاد گر نہ بن جاتے بادباں سجاد دین احمد صلوات
ایک اور درود پڑھ دیجیے محمد آل محمد۔ بے کسوں کے مددگار مولا علی، جس تیرے کوئی اپنا سہارا نہیں، تیرا در چھوڑ کر جائے آخر کہاں، غیر کا در جبیں کو گوارا نہیں، بے کسوں کے مددگار مولا علی، جس تیرے کوئی اپنا سہارا نہیں، جو علی کا نہیں وہ نبی کا نہیں، جو نبی کا نہیں وہ خدا کا نہیں، جو علی کا نہیں وہ نبی کا نہیں، جو نبی کا نہیں وہ خدا کا نہیں، اے مسلمان اصحاب سے پوچھ لے، کیا یہ خم نبی نے پکارا نہیں، اور پہلے تاریخ خیبر کی پڑھ لیجئے، پھر کوئی آخری فیصلہ کیجئے، پہلے تاریخ خیبر کی پڑھ لیجئے، پھر کوئی آخری فیصلہ کیجئے، یا یہ کہنا پیغمبر بھی ہے بدعتی، یا یہ کہنا علی کو پکارا نہیں، اور آئے کعبے میں جس دم علی کے قدم، منہ کے بل گر پڑے بت یہ کہتے ہوئے، آئے کعبے میں جس دم علی کے قدم، منہ کے بل گر پڑے بت یہ کہتے ہوئے، آئیے آئیے جانشین نبی، یہ تمہارا ہی گھر ہے हमारा नहीं। आइए आइए जानशीने नबी, ये तुम्हारा ही घर है हमारा नहीं। वो तो कम ज़र्फ़ है जो तुझे छोड़ दे, वरना मौला अली तेरी ताज़ीम को जो पलट कर ना आए वो सूरज नहीं, जो न चौखट को चूमे वो तारा नहीं। और या तो रोज़े पे बुलवा, जो न चौखट को चूमे वो तारा नहीं। तेरा दर छोड़ कर जाए आखिर कहाँ, गैर का दर जबी को गवारा नहीं। बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावत।
Thank you so much, Brother Himani, for the recitation of Hadith Kisa, and Brother Safdar and Ali Mohsin for the beautiful recitation of the Qasidas. From the depth of my heart, I would like to thank Sheikh Hajj Jalal Moughania for giving us these 3 nights from his precious time. He's a really busy guy, so we really appreciate you coming to our community. Last night we had a Q&A session over here. He was here till a little after midnight, I believe, so really appreciate you giving the time. I would like to request everyone to please recite a loud salawat if you want to see him back here again. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I would like to request Hajj to please come and take the pulpit. Please recite one more loud salawat. There's still tiny bit room in the front if you guys want to come in.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل على. والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah again to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Al-Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected elders, my dear respected brothers, my dear respected sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight, we come together in this continued commemoration and remembrance of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Whether it be for Our Lady Fatima alayhi salam, or it be for our master Imam Ali Zainul Abideen, each and every one of the members of Ahlul Bayt come from one light. And that light brings life to our existence. And it is that connection that we have with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. From one Imam to the next, all the way to Our Lady Fatima alayhi salam, to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that brings us closer and closer to living the reality of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. When we examine what was the mission of Ahlul Bayt, each and every single one of them, we claim this closeness and this desire to be followers of Ahlul Bayt, Muslims on the path that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam established. The testimony, the shahada of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, something that would free the Arabians of the peninsula, the Persians, the Africans, the Byzantines, anyone who wished for true freedom could seek it, whether they came from nobility or bondage. They could seek it through La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. If you took that and made that your new identity, you've gained an identity in freedom. Now, what does that actually mean and look like for each and every one of us? And when we're looking at the reality of our existence here today, do we see the proximity that we have with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this testimony of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah? Is it a distance in time that we have? A period of time that we are looking 1,400 years later? We hear that a lot, 1,400 years later. Or is it something that exists now, here? The freedom that comes through La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is not bound by time. The freedom that we have through seeking these individuals who lived a life dedicated to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. It's not bound by time and it's not bound by a place. So we come here in Houston, Texas, and we remember these individuals. And we remember what they stood for. We remember how they lived their lives. And we remembered how they died. For what? For what? For you. Because Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they don't need us. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they don't need us. No matter if we're 10, 20, 50, or 50,000, or 5 million, or 500 million, they don't need us. But we have an opportunity. And we find that in our journey in life, there are individuals that understood the ultimate reality. That is La ilaha illallah. And the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the king of them, the head of them being Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, we have the opportunity to connect with them. And that connection, my dear brothers and sisters, comes through none other than the Imam of our time, Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, Ajalallahu ta'ala fajr al-Shaykh. A simple reminder for all of us, whether it's mourning Lady Fatima alayhi salam and remembering her tragedy between the door and the wall, or it is Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam and remembering his life of sacrifice and success. Sacrifice and success. Because we see this too often in the lens of when you're looking at Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the tragedy, the mourning, the oppression, perhaps they did not live successful lives. Absolutely not. They showed us how to live a successful, meaningful, purposeful life while you're oppressed, while the circumstances may not be serving you. So how can you and I, in looking at Lady Fatima alayhi salam, looking at Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam, seeing it within the framework of Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, the Imam of my time, the one who is alive, the one who is waiting for you and I to reach what? The understanding of what it means to truly be a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through them. How do we bring it all together? In our daily practice, this place that we have together, this cornerstone of our community development, a place that many of you, your families, your fathers, your grandfathers, your aunts, your uncles, sacrifice in order to be able to have a place like this. We stand on the shoulders of giants so that we can come together and strengthen our faith and our identity and look into the future of where we're going. You and I belong to both the present and the future of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ajjallahu ta'ala farajhu al-Sharif. Keep this mindset, keep this paradigm. Let's go and take some lessons from the life of Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam. This is a man who showed us how through all of the sacrifices and trials and tribulations that he went through, he still provided inspiration for success for all people. When you look at the movement of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, there is an underlying principle, an objective, two in fact, that if you're ever wondering, why did this member of Ahlul Bayt do this? And why did this member of Ahlul Bayt do that? For example, why did Imam Ali alayhi salam not stand up against those who perhaps, and we know, took his rights? Why? Some of our brothers and sisters from other schools of thought, they will say, if Ali truly had the claim for the Khilafah, as you say, why didn't he fight? Why did Ali do what he did? Why did Al-Hassan choose a peace accord with Muawiyah? And why did Al-Hussein alayhi salam stand up against Yazid in Karbala? And why did Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam return to Medina? Why did Imam Zainul Abideen do what he did? And Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq and the rest of our Imams. Who here wants to know, why do we see these different moves perhaps by the Imams of Ahlul Bayt? Beautiful, mashallah. Sometimes, depending on how it's framed, it may be said that these are contradictory. In fact, some may say that there's a Hassani approach to things and then there's a Husseini approach to things. That Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam was more of a diplomatic, peaceful nature. One who was perhaps opposed to war, opposed to battle. So when you look at Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, was he a pacifist? Absolutely not. Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the Prophet described them. Al-Hassan wal-Hussein, imaman, qama aw qa'da. They are two leaders for you, two imams for you, whether they rise or settle, whether they stand or sit. The Prophet established it for us. What the imam does is to be followed. And their position as the imam is not based on the way you see the world. The way we see the world is based on the imam. Theologically, this is very important for us to see. Now, what did the imam do and why did they do what they did? if you look closely at the Prophet ﷺ, to Imam Ali, to Lady Fatima alayhi salam, Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein, all of the Imams, there's something that our scholars teach us. And this is something I personally learned from the books and the teachings of Grand Ayatollah, the late Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim. He passed away 3 years ago. And there's a book that I would highly recommend all of you to read. It's translated into English. My brother and my colleague, Hajj Muhammad Ali, he translated the original book. I mentioned this in the Q&A yesterday. He translated the original book. The original book was called Faji'atu Taf. In English, there's an abridged translated version called Understanding Karbala by Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim. In this book, you will see the Grand Ayatollah, the late Grand Ayatollah, Rahmatullah alayh, he goes through the historical events experienced by Ahlul Bayt from a theological framework, giving the follower of Ahlul Bayt an understanding how these events would unfold and why they would unfold the way they did. There's two principles that whatever you see Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam do, they fall within these two principles. You want to know what they are? You want to know what they are? حفظ الدين وحفظ الدماء. Safeguarding, preservation of the faith, the religion, Islam, and the safeguarding and preservation of the faithful. Saving the faith and saving the faithful. So when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam went out to Karbala, it was for what? To save Islam. And when al-Hasan alayhi salam would have a peace accord with Muawiyah, it was to save Islam. And when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib would not fight against those who took his rights and said himself, so long as the transgression is only against me in my personal individual capacity, I will do whatever saves the affairs of the Muslims. Saving Islam and saving the believers, the faithful. When you see the movement of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, some people don't pay attention to this. Throughout the movement of Imam al-Hussein, he followed the same tradition of his brother Imam al-Hassan. So before Muawiyah would die, the 10 years that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam lived under the reign of Muawiyah, people from the Shia went to Imam al-Hussein. Let's rise, let's fight against Muawiyah, let's take back Iraq, let's take back what's ours. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would tell them, you are our Shia, you are our admirers. We honor you, we appreciate you, but it's not time. I am still on what my brother Al-Hassan was on, and so long as Muawiyah is alive, sheathe your swords. Same thing. No one was Hassani as much as Imam al-Hussein. No one. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, his movement against Yazid, in the way he did, was following Imam al-Hassan, following Amir al-Mu'mineen. And if Imam al-Hassan was in the situation that Imam al-Hussein was in, when they surrounded him in Medina, and they made him flee Medina, and they persecuted him, and they wanted to force him, and he would be forced from Mecca to Iraq, Imam al-Hassan would have done the same exact thing. Why? The principle was the same. When you look at Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, you may see 12 different Imams. We see one. They're all the same. They're following the same exact principles. The important thing here is to understand what is the objective and within the time and the place. So you and I, living in the United States of America, we need to understand our context. Living in the state of Texas, we need to understand our context. Living in Houston, we need to understand our context. You are a strong follower of Ahlul Bayt. You have a love for Ahlul Bayt, a love for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a love for Islam, a love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order for you to protect and honor this love and dedication to Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet and Allah ultimately, you have to understand your context, your role within society. The Prophet and Ahlul Bayt always saw things within the context that they were living in. And they engaged based on the context that they were living in. And we saw this with Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam. With the Imam, I want you to imagine, after all that happened, Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam was in his 20s at Karbala. And he had a son at Karbala, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, who was allegedly 4 years of age. Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam witnessed what took place, experienced the horror and the trial and the tragedy that was Karbala, seeing his whole family massacred, seeing his Imam, his father, massacred. But what did Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam do after all of that? Imam Zainul Abideen would lead a spiritual renaissance in the Ummah. If you see, one of the things that we benefit from Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam to this day are knowing what are the rights that we have. One, legally, what are our rights? How do we see the world when it comes to our rights and responsibilities? Through Risalatul Huquq, the treatise on rights. And then two, what became As-Sahif As-Sajjadiyya, the Psalms of As-Sajjad, this book of supplications, ad'iyah, dua. The Imam would lead a spiritual renaissance, a revolution, if you will, for the people to realize and understand how do they fit within this world, because the Ummah was spiritually dead. Imam Zainul Abideen used the trial. He was not a victim. He was not weak. He was not meek. Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam, when it came to the time to being questioned, asked, "Who are you?" He would say, "I'm Ali ibn al-Hussein," by the tyrants of his time. But I want you to see, the Imams alayhim salam, when they were in an opportunity to speak out against a tyrant, it wasn't just reserved for the loudness of their voices. In fact, the Imams were known, their voices were strong, but they weren't loud. There's a difference. Their voices were strong, but they weren't loud. And they followed that with their action and how they interacted with the community of their time within their context. Yes, Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam, along with Lady Zainab, they were taken from land to land. They were persecuted, they were tortured in chains, taken from Karbala to Kufa, Kufa to Damascus, and finally back to Medina. When Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam finally settled in Medina, and even before that, along the journey, he was educating people, bringing them closer to Islam, reminding them of the tenets and the principles of Islam, even in the state that he was in. But when he was finally back in Medina, I mentioned these two things that he was focusing on: the rights of people, a paradigm of rights and responsibilities. Because if you take the time to read Risat al-Huquq, you see that the Imam starts with the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this idea that we have of rights, the way the Imam puts it forward is the rights of other things upon you. The individual, the person, is not to be concerned with only what is the right of them as an individual upon everything else. What am I entitled to? Instead, it's a paradigm of responsibility. Who do I have to do things for? I'm responsible towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. God has rights upon me. Myself has rights upon me. My family has rights upon me. My mother, my father, my siblings, my children, my spouse, my teachers, my partners, my community. The idea of rights within Islam that Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam would clarify and perhaps pioneer in the world. One of the earliest treaties in history on rights, Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam put it forward in the 7th century. And then the second part was the spirituality and reviving the sense of spirituality and understanding, how do I even talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Has anyone read Dua Abi Hamza al-Thumali? MashaAllah. In Dua Abi Hamza, So we recite it in Shahr Ramadan. Beautiful dua. This is a dua that Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam, after the tragedy of Karbala, this is his life. Most of his adult years, his mid-20s and beyond, were after Karbala. He taught a companion of Ahlul Bayt, Abu Hamza Thumali, this dua, which will take us, if we're to read it, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. He taught him this dua. And this companion became honored with his dua by it becoming his name. Similar to Dua Kumail. Imam Ali alayhi salam taught Kumail, Dua Kumail. Taught him this dua, and then he was honored with it being titled after him. In Dua Abi Hamza, Al-Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam takes the human being through the full spectrum of emotions and feelings that we have, and how to channel those emotions and feelings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to share with you just a very small part that's repeated twice in Dua Abi Hamza. Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam, he teaches Abu Hamza this part. Inni haribun minka ilayk. Ya Allah, I am running away from you. Haribun mink, fleeing from you. The Imam is describing for you and I. It's not just for Abu Hamza. He, mashallah, has the title for that dua, but it's for you and me. Inni haribun minka ilayk. Ya Allah, I'm running away from you, only to go back to you. You can't escape Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even in your sin, you can't help, but you have to go back to Allah. How can you even sin without what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you? You want to sin with your eyes? Those are the eyes that Allah gave you to see. You want to sin with your hands, with your feet, with your limbs? Those are the hands and the feet and the limbs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you to use and walk with. You want to sin with your tongue? You want to say something ill about somebody else? You want to speak ill of somebody? That's the speech that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Inni haribun minka ilayk. I'm running away from you only to go back to you. Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam would lead a spiritual revolution. And yes, though the followers at that time were small in number, the Imam looked into the future. He saw into the future. He saw generations later, not just with Imam al-Baqir, his son, and Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, his grandson, who would have 4,000 plus students generations later. But the Imams would look into the future and see what the Shia would look like now. The strategy of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, my dear brothers and sisters, was one that would look into the future and see everything that would take place. Now, I'm not talking about ilm al-ghayb here. I'm talking about the intelligence of Ahlul Bayt from one Imam to the next to see the consequence of their actions and the ripple effect it would have. For example, Al-Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, in his peace accord with Muawiyah, Al-Imam al-Hasan explained to his followers, you know I am the first amongst you in battle. The companions of Imam al-Hasan, they came to him, they complained to him, what is this peace accord with Muawiyah? We want war. We want to fight. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam would listen to them, hear them out. Look at the Imams, the way they interacted with Ahlul Bayt. Look at the Imams, the way they interacted with the followers of Ahlul Bayt. Even with some of them that would criticize the Imam. His own followers would criticize him. But they would listen. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam would say, you know I am the first amongst you in battle. But this is not the time. If we are to go in battle with Muawiyah, there would be none of us left. So Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam would tell his followers, and by the way, many of them, they didn't like what he said. I want you to pay close attention to this. The sacrifices of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam was not just with their life, with their enemies. The sacrifices of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam was also with their followers, who perhaps did not have the patience to see their strategy, or perhaps did not have the patience to see the sacrifice that they were actually making. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, do you know how much he wanted to engage in battle with Muawiyah? But he saw the bigger picture. He saw the trap that was being set by Muawiyah. And instead, he chose peace to safeguard what? The faith and the faithful. Imam al-Hussein followed suit. And then in Karbala, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, as a last resort, and on his way to Karbala, would continue to do what? Tell people, I'm going towards my death. I'm going towards my martyrdom. You don't have to die with me. I'm not going to rule. I'm going towards my death. And even on the eve of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would tell people, tell his followers, tell his own family members, tell his own companions, I want you to take the darkness of the night. Each of you hold the hand of another person amongst you. Take the camels and ride into the cities and the towns close by and save your souls, save your lives. They only want my blood. Why was Imam al-Hussein, wal'iyadhu billah, God forbid, was Imam al-Hussein just being poetic? No, this isn't a fairy tale. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, to the last moments, was trying to save people's lives. I want you to take inspiration from that to see how important your life is. Don't take your life for granted. Don't take your role that you play in your society, in your community for granted. You are here for a reason. We are all here for a reason. And as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we need to understand the framework that we're living in. Because trust me, the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they're imams. The imams, they appreciated them. Habib ibn Mudahir, when he was with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala, this is one of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, with Imam al-Hussein in Karbala. When Imam al-Hussein saw Habib, he saw, Habib, you've warmed our hearts. It is so great to have you amongst us. And then a message was sent from Lady Zainab alayhi salam to Habib, thanking Habib for being with them in Karbala. The Imams alayhim salam, they appreciate their followers. Habib said, who am I to be greeted by Al-Hussein and Zainab? Now, why do I share this specifically? You and I, no matter how little we are in number, in any time in our lives, know that Al-Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman appreciates you and sees you. I'm going to continue to emphasize this. The sun behind the clouds, the sun behind the clouds. No matter how cloudy it is, the sun is always there. Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman is here. And I know you believe it in your heart. And I know we go through trials and tribulations. I know we go through hard times. But Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman is here. And he appreciates you. And he sees you. And he loves you. And he is there for you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not leave the creation that he has made without the blessing of his vicegerent, without the blessing of his representative. He continues to bless us with his presence. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can see the day that the clouds move away from the sun. We pray. But I want to challenge us with the following thought. Can we take the little inspiration that comes from the minbar, from the majlis, from the gathering, from the masayib, from the jashan, to all of the commemorations and celebrations that we have, and make it where in our lives, I want to learn more about Imam Zainul Abideen, mashallah. I hear Risalatul Huquq from the minbar. I hear Dua Abi Hamza from the minbar. I hear As-Sahifa Sajjadiyya. Can we pick it up and read it? Actually, what I'm going to ask you all to do, I want you all to take out your phones. Just take out your phones real quick. Take out your phone. And I want you to just type in your phone treaties on rights or Risalatul Huquq. Type it with English letters. Risalatul Huquq. Treaties on rights. If I'm not mistaken, the first thing that you're going to see is most likely alislam.org, Treaties on Rights by Imam Sajjad. Tonight, as in giving a salute to this Imam, the one who survived Karbala, the one who would live his life teaching and educating and inspiring without ever forgetting the sacrifice of his father Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. I want you to tonight read through these treaties. There's about 51 rights from the treaties on rights and Risalatul Huquq. It won't take you more than an hour max to read through all of it, max. Look and appreciate what the Imam has given us and the pioneer that the Imam was. Just as one example, and there's so many others. Dua Abi Hamza. I guarantee you, I tell you, there was a period of time in my life where my mentor and my teacher told me, Jalal, read this every day. And it started in Shahr Ramadan for me. Read this every day. It transformed me. Transformed me. If you read the ad'iyah of the Imams, especially Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam, and you understand the way you're supposed to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you become a different man. You become a different woman. Take a chance. Spend some time. Just dedicate to yourself. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. We call ourselves their followers and their servants. But by God, we have no idea how much they serve us with their sacrifices and what they gave, what they left behind. Imam Zainul Abideen alayhi salam, just learn a little bit about him, just a little bit, and see how your life will be transformed, inshaAllah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my dear brothers and sisters, in this movement that we have towards bringing ourselves closer to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, every opportunity that we have, where we learn something, let's share it with somebody else. And let's start with our families. I'm not telling us to go out into town and start doing da'wah and start sharing and telling people, come to Shia Islam. I'm not saying that. God bless you. What I'm saying is share it with your family. Share it with the people that are closest to you. Not in a way to necessarily indoctrinate. Just share. And the best way of sharing is through our conduct. When we want to pray, let us not start by telling each other to pray. Let's just pray. When we want to supplicate and do dua, let's not tell each other you should supplicate and do dua when you're feeling depressed or you're feeling down. Let us be a community where in our families and our households we're doing dua. That we're sharing kindness with one another. That we are being good to one another. That when somebody needs something, we are there to fulfill their needs without them asking twice. We're there for one another. The strength that the Shia of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have is in their good conduct, in their akhlaq. That Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam would say, when this person is said he is Ja'fari, let it be that the people say he is the best amongst us. كونوا زينا لنا ولا تكونوا شينا علينا. Be an adornment to us, not a shame on us. Make us look good. When we carry the name Ja'fari, when we carry the Ithna Ashari, what does that mean? We're following Imam al-Sadiq. We're following the 12 Imams. When you carry the name Shia, do you know what that means? A follower of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That's huge. كونوا دعاة لنا بغير ألسنتكم. Be a call unto us without your tongue. So the more I learn and I dedicate and I read these books that I'm mentioning, and I read these supplications that we're mentioning, read the treaties on rights that we're mentioning, it's meant to do what? To transform my akhlaq, my conduct, so that I become a better man. for my spouse. I become a better father for my children. I become a better son for my parents. I become a better brother for my siblings. I become a better servant, ultimately for myself and my servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my dear brothers and sisters, on my behalf, on behalf of all of you, to allow us to be stronger and stronger in our faith, in our dedication to Ahlul Bayt, to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and ultimately to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the right of Imam Zainul Abideen, the sick one in Karbala, to heal all of our sick, to heal all of our ill ones, Ya Allah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the right of Ahlul Bayt and all of their sacrifices, to bring us closer to their path, Ya Allah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to unite us and bring us closer together, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, Ya Allah. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to witness the hastening of the appearance of Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, Ajalallahu ta'ala faraj al-Sharif. We say this, we pray this, and the last of our prayers, and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa afdal as-salat wa taslim ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala ali baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. And my dear brothers and sisters, as a true sentiment and token of appreciation, thank you for allowing me to serve with you all, to bring forth the remembrance of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. I don't take that lightly. For me to sit here with you all, thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening. Thank you for opening your hearts and your minds so that inshallah we can all benefit from the memory of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They are our ship of salvation. They are our light of guidance. So thank you for being a part of this and allowing me to be a part of this with you all. For all of your marhumeen, and especially those who made this majlis possible, to make this center possible as a cornerstone of your community, let's all recite Surah Al-Fatiha. But before I allowed salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. As-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata al-ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin. Ahsantum.